today's topic is all about building your pricing confidence. So let's make a start on that. So why is it that we lack confidence? And the reason we lack confidence is, I think, a number of reasons. And we're going to look at today what are the three, if I can get my fingers right, the three big reasons, the three things that we need to work on to increase our confidence. And I think part of that is, and I think back to when I started my accounting firm way back in 1996, I certainly had a big issue with confidence. I had no idea how to price. And that's partly because we're not taught how to price. We're professionals, we're accountants, we're bookkeepers. We're taught how to do tax returns. We're taught how to do bookkeeping. We're taught how to do the technical work of running an accounting firm. But we're not taught the soft skills, and one of the most important is pricing. How do we price? I had no idea back in 96. I had to figure it out, and it took me years to figure it out. And that has severe consequences. And I think back to my journey. So I started my firm in 1996. I had no idea how to price. I was brought up in the profession believing you had to keep timesheets, believing that you had to charge an hourly rate. Before I started my firm, I worked at a large multi-partner firm in Sheffield in the UK. As a manager in that firm, I had an hourly rate. And so when I started my accounting firm as a sole practitioner, I decided that because I had lower overheads, because I was starting off really as small as a sole practitioner, I took my hourly rate as an employee, reduced it a bit, and that was it. It was kind of fairly arbitrary. That was the number I chose as how much I priced based on the hour. And then I realized I had all sorts of problems. I would tell people what my rate was, and people would say to me, "Mark, that's really expensive." And I had no idea what to say to that. And so that eroded my confidence. I was also really keen to grow my accounting firm. I wanted to win clients. I wanted to build a big firm. And so I had this mistaken belief that I had to be cheap to win the business. And so this lack of confidence that I had, the stressing over pricing and this belief that I had to keep my prices competitive, had some really profound consequences and in terms of my practice. Over the next 3 years, I found that I was really, really struggling to make ends meet, to make money. Yes, I was growing. I was winning clients all over the place. I was winning clients fast. I thought I was doing really well because I was winning so many clients. I moved from my bedroom, into a spare bedroom, into my first offices after 2 months. I then outgrew that, and 15 months later moved into bigger premises. I was hiring people. I was winning more clients. I thought I was building a great firm, but I kept having problems of not making any money. I was having to work harder and harder and harder because my margins were so bad. And I had no idea for a few years. The reason for that was my pricing was terrible. It really was terrible. But I was scared to put my prices up because of this lack of confidence, this worry I might lose clients. And then it was late 98, 99, I started to discover how to build a more successful firm. And it was late 99, I discovered value pricing. And then in the year 2000 and 2001, I went through a big, what I call a re-engineering process. I completely changed my practice. I completely changed the way I priced. I became confident in the way that I priced, and I'll talk about what I did and how I did that. And as a result of that, started winning better quality clients, much better quality clients. And within 2 years, my profitability went from pretty much nothing to very significant, so much so that I was then able to start talking to my client managers and negotiating with them so that they could then buy the practice off me. I sold my practice a few years after that. And as some of you know, I then started teaching the accounting profession, originally in the UK through a wonderful organisation called AVN with Steve Pipe. Many of you know Steve Pipe, who's now a big advocate of B1G1. And then, of course, in 2014, as most of you know, I founded the Value Pricing Academy. And for the last 7 years now, I've been teaching accountants, bookkeepers around the world how to master value pricing. So what are the big things that are holding us back with our confidence? And I think confidence is arguably the single most important thing we have to fix when it comes to pricing. We have to get our confidence right. It's really the root cause of many of our pricing problems, this lack of confidence. So what do we do to become confident? And there's really three things. And the first one, and arguably the most important thing, is it's all up here, our mindset. It's all about our beliefs. And we have to believe that we are worth it. We cannot start to communicate with our clients the value of what we do until internally we recognize the value that we bring to our clients. So one of the exercises, if you've never done this, I recommend that you do is think about all the years that you've been in business. Think about all the clients that you've worked with, and start to think about what are the times when you've done something extraordinary, when you've had a client that's been so grateful because you've helped them to, whether it's save tax, increase their cash flow, their profits, perhaps you've helped them become more efficient, you've done some to help them with their business. Think about the time when you've had a great result and a client's been delighted, and then recognize that that's the kind of impact that we can have. For me, one of the results that I had for a client, and interesting, I did a live session just a few weeks ago, which is on my YouTube channel. It's one of the most recent videos on how to value price complex tax work. If you've not watched that video, if you do tax work, you might want to catch up with that. But in there, I told a story of a result I got for one of my clients in 2000. And this was a client that was in the construction industry, the building industry in the UK. And back then, in the late 90s, 99, 2000, the tax authorities, and in particular what's called the contributions agency, were really pushing status and pushing for subcontracts in the building industry to be on the books, to be on payroll. And I picked up a brand new client in 1999 in my accounting firm. And when I had a look at their financial statements, I was surprised that they had, for each of the previous 2 years, £30,000 in a particular piece of tax called employers' national insurance contributions. If you're not in the UK, don't worry about the technical side of it. But they paid over each of the last 2 years 30 grand. That's 60 grand in total. And I asked why, and that's because they said because my previous accountant had recommended we have to put our subcontractors onto the payroll. And I said, that's crazy, you don't. Just because the revenue that the tax authorities think that's the case, that's not what case law says in the UK. So I put in place some what's called contracts for services, self-employed contracts, if you like, that they got their subcontractors to sign. They got a visit from the tax authorities, which is not a surprise because I took them back off payroll, and the tax authorities came and visited them and said, we agree these contracts are valid, they are self-employed. And so what I did is I saved that client effectively £30,000 in tax each and every year going forward as a result of that. And then what I did is I then decided, can I possibly get them that last 2 years that they shouldn't have paid because they should never have been advised to go onto the payroll? And I was successful, and I got them a cheque for £60,000. So I got them £60,000 back, which helped their cash flow and saved them 30 grand every single year. And for me at the time, that was a huge result. They gave me an amazing success story, case study. But it made me realize, in my belief, I suddenly realized, you know what? I can have a profound difference. This was a small little father and son business. This changed their life, this sum of money I'd saved them. And okay, we don't do it with every client, but when I realized that's the impact that I can have, it made me realize that, yeah, I am worth it. And that's what you need to do as well. We need to change our beliefs. Realize that whether you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, you can do extraordinary things. You can really help clients. You are worth it. You have to recognize that. And so one of the things you want to do is start to have some arrogance, if you like. And so that when people say to you, that's expensive, that's a high price, we need to make sure that we're confident and can justify that. So you want to create what's your script. If someone says that's expensive, that's higher than the last firm I spoke to, then you want to say something like, well, these are our prices, and the reason for that is because we focus on helping you get extraordinary results. We're different to most other firms. We help you to, whatever it might well be for you, we help you to save tax. We help you to make your business more efficient and streamlined. We help you to save money, to increase your profits, whatever it might well be that you focus on. And then I would say, if you want a cheap firm, then by all means, there are cheap firms out there. If you want the best, these are our prices. And so that's that mindset of understanding you're worth it and being arrogant and holding your ground. Another thing that I strongly recommend you do is, and this is you should be doing from a marketing point anyway, but you want to start being obsessive with collecting feedback, stories, case studies, testimonials. So back in about end of 98, 99 in my accounting firm, I put some systems in place where I would get feedback from my clients. And if it was great feedback, which most of the time it was, I would follow up by asking for a testimonial, case study, success story. And what I would do back in those days, everything was printed out. So I carried around with me a folder I created, one of these folders with little plastic sleeves inside. So somebody would send me a testimonial on their letterhead, including this father and son painter and decorating firm. They gave me a wonderful one, and I would put them into this folder, and I would carry that everywhere. So if ever I saw a prospective client and they said, that's expensive, I'd say, well, that's because we get extraordinary results. Let me show you some of the testimonials that we have. And I would then show people the folder and let them look through and read the things that other people had said about me. And what happens is when you ask your clients for feedback, when you start collecting success stories, every time a client says to you, I love working with you. You're amazing because of this, this, and this. What it does is it increases our self-esteem. It gives us a reason to celebrate. And it makes you realize the more you get that feedback from people, the more you'll start to realize that, yes, you are worth it. You are making a big difference. People love working with you. And I know with certainty that right now, most of your clients love working with you. That's why they work with you every single month. They love working with you. We just need to hear that sometimes. We need to ask them and hear those words. So start to collect stories. And the other thing that you want to do in terms of helping you believe that you're worth it is listen to the stories of your peers. So some of you know that I regularly interview other accountants and bookkeepers to share their success stories. I ask for success stories so I can share them amongst the community. I put them in my Facebook group. I have many stories on my YouTube channel. And the reason for that is that they're inspiring. If you're struggling right now with your pricing and you hear other people just like you, other accountants, bookkeepers, talking about what they've done and the results they're getting, it helps us to think, well, if they can do that, I can do it too. And you can get great results. So that's really the starting point is beliefs. We have to change our mindset, and you are worth it. The second thing we have to do if we want to be more confident with our pricing is we have to know how to price. And I touched on this right at the start, that one of the challenges, the problems is when we start our accounting firms, we're not taught how to price. It's not part of professional exams. It's not what we're taught, but nevertheless, it's one of the most important skills we need. In fact, I would argue the most important skill, because price is the fastest way to change profits. So we have to make sure that we invest some time to learn how to price. And you're all here. You're here, so you probably get this already, that this is important. This topic can... I've had people that I did an interview just a couple of weeks ago now, and the video will go on my YouTube channel very soon. We've got about 6 or 7 stories that we'll be uploading soon. And this was a lady who joined the Value Pricing Academy, and she took immediate action to reprice her existing clients with the things that she'd learned. She just went and did it, and the results she got was extraordinary. and sometimes doubling the price and sometimes more with existing clients. And we can do that when we have the belief, the mindset that yes, we are worth it, and we have some knowledge as well. And when I say knowledge, we need to understand things like how do we give a price with confidence? How do we give a price that we know is going to be profitable? Which I know is a big issue, particularly for things like bookkeeping services, cleanup work, where the scope of the work is very unpredictable. And very often with challenging, complex work, we revert back to the timesheet and the hours. But clients hate that. And hourly rates always seem expensive. We have to give a fixed price up front. The question is, how do we have the confidence? How do we give a fixed price up front, knowing that that price is a great price and will give us a good profit? And so we have to learn that. We have to figure out, well, how do we understand the different scope factors? How do we understand what questions to ask the client so that we can come up with a price? We have to understand, how do we have the price conversation? How do we communicate value? What are the words that we say? How do we build up value in the client's mind? And if you came to one of my recent sessions on communication skills, I talk about things like using anchors, quantifying the value, putting a number on the value of what we do, or a number on the pain that we're taking away. And so we have to learn these skills of how do we communicate that value. We have to learn, how do we deal with objections? What do we say? When I started my accounting firm back in 96, 97, and people would say to me, Mark, that's really expensive. That's a high hourly rate. I had no idea how to answer that. And so I would crumble on price. I would just say, well, tell you what, we could do it for this. And that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And yet that's what we all do. We keep reducing our price to try and win the business because we don't have the knowledge. We don't know how to deal with those objections, the words to use. So we need to create those scripts, for example. So knowledge is really important. When we know how to have the value conversation, when we know the words to use to build up value, when we have that knowledge, when we know how to come up with a price that we know will be profitable, then that gives us confidence that we're doing things the right way. And the third area really builds on knowledge, which is the systems. We need to have systems for pricing. As you know, systems are critically important. We are, in our industry, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a bookkeeper, we are very, very systematic in our thinking, in our processes. Most of what we do, the technical work, is systemized. If you do tax returns, we have tax return completion checklists. If you do bookkeeping, then things like bank reconciliations, that's a system. We have a system for reconciling a bank account. We are very detailed. We are very systematic in the way we do things. We have these checklists, we have standard letters, standard forms and processes. Systems are really important, but most firms don't have systems for pricing. And yet pricing is arguably the most important thing we have to get right in our firms. If we price too low, then we end up being just like I was in the late 1990s, working crazy long hours just to try and make ends meet, just to get through and meet the payroll and so on. We need to have pricing systems. So some of the systems we need to have in place is, how do we give a price with confidence? How do we know that the price that we present is going to give us a profit if we're going to give a price up front, which we have to do? We can't price based on the hour. Clients hate it. We have to give a price up front because clients want certainty in life. All customers want certainty. Whenever you and I buy something, we want to know what the price is going to be. And so we have to give a price right up front. And so how do we do that? Well, we need to understand what are the things that impact on the amount of work involved. What are the scope factors? If it's bookkeeping, it might be how many transactions. Is the client registered for sales tax? Do they have overseas transactions? How many bank accounts do they have? How many credit card accounts do we have? And then we need to figure out, how can we get that information and give a price with confidence? And those of you that have done my how to price bookkeeping training, I talk a lot about regression analysis, where we look at some past clients, we look at some of the key scope issues, and we look at what we've charged them before, what we should charge them, and then we can plot that on an Excel spreadsheet, and we can start to do this analysis where it actually tells us what the price should be. It's a great starting point as a system. Other systems that we should have are questions. We have to become better at asking the right questions right at the start of the value conversation, because if we want to get better prices, then we need to understand at a deeper level what drives value, what's important to the client. Very often, clients don't really know what they want. When they come to see us, they will say things like, I want a cash flow forecast. What will it cost? But they don't want a cash flow forecast. They want what a cash flow forecast will do for them, the problems that will take away. Perhaps they want some finance. Perhaps they're struggling right now to collect money. Perhaps their cash flow is terrible. We need to better understand what's the real underlying issue, and to do that, we have to ask the right questions. We have to have a process for asking the right questions, because the better we become, the more we build our knowledge, our skills, and have systems for asking questions, the more we start to uncover what value really is, what's really important to the client. The better we can understand the pain they're going through, the reason why they've come to you, the better we can do that, the better we can understand that, the better we can then start to build up in their mind the value of what we can do. So to give a quick example, if a client comes to you, potential client, and they want you to do their bookkeeping, and we just give them a price for bookkeeping, I can almost guarantee they'll say that's expensive, because they don't really understand the value of bookkeeping. Well, the starting point in the process is, let's ask them some questions to find out why, in the first place, they have come to us for the conversation, to have a meeting with us, to talk about bookkeeping. And if we ask the right questions, we might uncover that they've been trying to do it themselves and they've made a lot of mistakes. And it might well be we uncover that they've currently got the tax authorities chasing them for late filings or underpaid tax. Perhaps we uncover that they're struggling to collect the money due from their customers because they don't actually know, because their sales ledger is wrong. They don't have an accurate aged, in the UK, aged debtors or aged accounts receivable, because they've got behind with posting their sales invoices and reconcile it to their receipts and so on. And so it may be they're having some real pain. And the more we can uncover that and then use the right language to build that up, the more that we can build up the value of what we do. Because what we're doing is we're not doing bookkeeping. What we're really doing is we're solving a problem, whatever that problem might well be. And there's more value to that than simply doing the books. And we have to ask the questions to uncover that. So we have to have systems for the questioning process. We need to have systems for building up the value of what we do. We have to have systems for what words do we use? What language do we use? How do we build up the value of our offering? And one of the things that we can do there is create, for example, written brochures that we can use that help us to keep on track, to communicate in the right order the things we need to do to build up in their mind that value. We have to talk about the pain. What's the pain that we're going to solve for them? What might their life look like afterwards once we've done it? If it's a cleanup project, we want to describe to them how their business will be better. What will be the benefits as a result of having a great set of books and records? So we have to communicate these things. We also want to make sure that we have these scripts, the words that we say when we get objections. So I mentioned that earlier in the knowledge bit that we have to know what to say when someone says that's expensive. We need to systemize that process. We need to write down, what are the words that you would say? What would you say if someone says to you, there's a firm down the road that's cheaper? How do you answer that? If you don't have a script, if you're not prepared for that, then we'll either just panic or we'll make it up as we go along. Without the system, without the script, without knowing what to say, that will impact on our confidence. When we know how to handle it, we're more confident. Software for pricing is a great system. So many of you, I know, use the effective pricing software. Effective pricing gives you confidence. Many people have said to me they feel more confident using the software because now they have a system for asking the client scope questions, asking the clients about their choices, their preferences, giving the client an array of different options of packages or bundles with a price for each, calculated so you know it's going to be profitable. And one of the important things about using an approach like effective pricing is you are involving the client in the pricing process. So for example, if you reveal your price and it's too high, it's outside the client's budget, they can't afford it perhaps, then having got a system for pricing, having involved the client in the pricing process, what we can then do is have a system for changing the price, changing the package. If the client says that's too expensive, I can't afford that. If your price comes up with, let's say for bookkeeping work, if the price comes up at $10,000 a year and they say to you, my last bookkeeper has charged me half that, without a system, we might say, well, I tell you what, we could probably do it for 40% less, which is crazy. We want a system. So having a system like effective pricing means that we can say to the client, well, that's the price because you want this, this, and this. If that's outside your budget, let's work together. Let's change a few things. Let's look at some of the things you said you wanted and see how important that really is. And perhaps we could take a few things out until we can find the package that's right for you at the right price. And so you work with the client until they say yes, until they get a price they're happy with. And rather than you crashing and burning and discounting, instead what you do is you change the package. You might have less work to do. It's a win-win. So they're the three things that we need to think about. Number one, the most important, is our beliefs. We have to change our mindset. You have to recognize that you are worth it. And you are worth it. So make sure you start celebrating every win. Celebrate every great result you get for a client. If you get a client give you some great feedback, print it out, stick it somewhere so that you see it to remind you of how great you really are. Build up your knowledge. Make learning about pricing a priority, because I've interviewed so many people recently where just changing the way they price has completely transformed bottom line profits in ways you wouldn't believe. Prices, if we think about it, if you can increase your average price by 20%, then that increase goes straight to bottom line profit, which could be an increase in profits subject to your cost structure. That could increase profits by 30, 40, 50%, double profits in some cases. And all we're doing is changing price. It's an easy way to change our results. And then number one is the belief. Number two is the knowledge. Number three, then let's have some systems to systematically price. And I want to leave, before we get into the Q&A, I want to leave with one final thought that's really important. And that is the economic reality of this. We have to recognize that it's not about winning every single client. When I started my accounting firm back in 1996, I wanted to build a big firm. And I thought the best way to do that was win every possible client I could. And so I purposely went in cheap because I didn't really have a system, I didn't have knowledge, I didn't have confidence, so I went in low. And yes, I won lots of clients. But after 3 years of doing that, I realized I was just running myself into the ground, working really hard and struggling. And what I realized a few years later was that by going in with a cheap price, yes, I was winning clients. Yes, I was building a firm fast. But I realized, and it took me years, I was a slow learner. I realized that I was winning the wrong types of clients. After 3 years, I had over 200 clients, many of whom were far from ideal. I had a practice largely full of C and D clients. And I was also getting frustrated why I wasn't winning the big clients, the good clients, the ones I really wanted. For me, I wanted to win clients that were about $1 million in sales, in revenue, because the sort of tax planning I did was ideal for that type of business. I helped people with structuring their company cars, with structuring their business, perhaps setting up a group structure. This was my expertise, and for family-owned limited companies and corporate businesses, that's why I could add huge value. But very often I wasn't winning those. And I realized afterwards that if you are too cheap, if you go with a low price, you'll win the clients that want the low price, the clients nobody really wants. But what also happens is the great clients, the ones that we really want, those valuable clients, those good quality clients, is you will not win them when you're too cheap. Because what happens is people associate a link between quality and price. And so if we think about it from their point of view, if they're looking to change accountant or bookkeeper because they're not happy with the service, they want something better quality, and they go to see you and you come in with a lower price, they're going to assume that you're not better quality, despite what you might say, because your price is lower. Price is so important because price sends out signals into the marketplace. If you have a low price, you'll get a certain type of client. If you want the better quality clients, you have to have a price that reflects that. And so we have to recognize it's not about winning every client. We do not want to win every client. Likewise, we don't want to keep every client, because you've probably got clients right now in your firm that you don't really enjoy dealing with. And so one of the ways to remove them from your practice is to start increasing your price and be confident about that. You're worth it. Be arrogant about your pricing. And don't worry if you lose some clients, because not all clients are good clients. So hopefully those thoughts help you with confidence and with all those things, beliefs, knowledge, systems. We'll look at each of those elements in other trainings, but that's where you want to make sure you start. Think about your mindset first. Start to recognize you are worth it, and then put some time aside to keep building your pricing knowledge. Okay, we're on to questions now. So let me know what questions you've got. I can see some questions coming in right now. Before we get into questions, a few quick announcements, dates for your calendars. And by the way, if you've enjoyed this, so if you've had some value from this session so far, then if you could click on that like button, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, whether you're on Facebook, just let me know with the like button. And also some events coming up. On November 11, one of my friends, Jim Rayner, some of you know Jim, he's running a session on November 11th where he will be teaching how to interpret data, how to take data, information, and turn it into a format that helps clients to understand numbers and data better. He's a genius with, he specializes in business advisory, and he's a genius with numbers, how to present data with Excel. He's running a session on November 11, I think the same time as this session, so whatever time it is right now for you in the world, I think it's a similar sort of time. So put that in your calendar, and Sarah will probably put a link in the comments later if you want to register for Jim Rayner's session. My next monthly session, the topic that you voted for, which was a system for communicating value, that's going to be same time as today on November 24th of November. That's our next of these sessions. So get that in your calendar. And then if you've never been before, I am running on November the 30th, December the 1st, December the 2nd, the next Business Advisory Masterclass. I run it twice a year. It's 3 days, 3 sessions where I teach how to profit from business advisory, how to help clients with their profit, how you can package that, how you can charge them and price that and make more money from business advisory. So if you've never been to the Business Advisory Masterclass, it's coming up soon, November 30th, December the 1st, December the 2nd. All 3 sessions start, again, same time as this one did for you, 4 o'clock UK time. Okay, so let's answer a few questions. Let's see who was the first question that came in. Just bear with me a second while I find it. The first question was, I think, from Priscilla, who is brand new. What does Priscilla say? How do we apply value pricing to existing clients? And how do we go about having that conversation with the client? Okay, Priscilla, that's a big question, but let's see if we can make a start on that. So one of the most common questions I get, Priscilla, is How do we move our existing clients onto value pricing if we've always done, for example, time-based billing before? And I think actually the real reason, the real question is often actually how do we start to increase the prices? And one of the things that we want to do is start to when we communicate our prices to our clients is give them a price up front. If we're going to communicate, we want to do that either in a meeting, which is the best way. So if those of you that use effective pricing, the best way to price is to involve the client in the pricing process, to ask them some questions, to understand what their real issues are. Then we build up the value using perhaps a system that we'll then look at on the 24th when we look at communication systems. And then we involve them in the pricing process, either using a tool like effective pricing, or you could build an Excel spreadsheet. That's the best way. The alternative is if you have lots of clients and want to move them across and increase the prices, is you can do it in writing. And I teach in the Value Pricing Academy a process for doing exactly that, the words that you use. So let's, I'm just going to go back to the question for a second. How do we apply value pricing to existing clients? I suppose the first thing, Priscilla, you need to understand is what is value pricing. And value pricing essentially means that we come up with a price not based on our costs and how long we think the work will take, but how much the client values something. And so you need to make sure that you understand what that means, and therefore that's why we have to ask the client questions to uncover the value, because sometimes it's quite difficult to put a value on something. For example, bookkeeping work. What's the value of bookkeeping work? We have to ask questions to uncover that. And then what we do is another key thing that you do, Priscilla, is give the clients different choices. Think of it as the bronze, silver, gold, if you like, because everybody values things differently. We don't know what they would value. So our goal is to ask some questions first to start to understand the key issues. Then it's about communicating and echoing back to them the value of what we do. Make sure it's clear that we're telling them what the pain is that we're taking away and what the outcomes are going to be, the results. We need to communicate better. And then we give them some choices, some options. We involve them in the pricing process. And one of the key things we do with pricing is we go in with a high price first, because if the price is too high, we can change it. If we're working with the client, we can change it. So there's some quick thoughts. It's a big question, that one. How do we go about having the conversation with the client? I think I've touched on that then. So ideally face-to-face. Face-to-face is always better. And when I say face-to-face, I will include a Zoom meeting in that because we're now living in an online world. You will get better results from talking to the client than just sending them something in writing, sending them an email. Priscilla, I hope that helps. There's probably a lot to that answer, and we could do a whole 30 minutes on that. And so if you want some more help on that, I recommend if you ask in my Facebook group, Value Pricing with Mark Wickersham, if you ask a question in there, I can point you in the direction of some of the YouTube videos that I think will help you. Lucy's asked a question. I'm not sure I fully understand this. What is a bookkeeper's why? I guess what you're referring to is, and if those of you that have ever studied Simon Sinek and all about why, we need to understand what's our reason for being in business. What's our core purpose? Some people call it a mission statement, core purpose, our reason why. And that's something that we all should have. What's the reason why? So, Lucy, when you say what is a bookkeeper's why, I'm going to assume you're a bookkeeper right now. If you are, Lucy, if you're a bookkeeper, well, I can't tell you what your why is. You need to decide that. In other words, what's important to you? What difference are you trying to make in the world? So for me, my reason why, my core purpose is very clear. Because I'm a qualified accountant, a chartered accountant, I love this profession. And so my goal, my core purpose, my mission is to help accountants and bookkeepers around the world build more profitable, successful, enjoyable accounting firms. I could teach this topic right now to lawyers. I could teach it to architects. I could teach doctors how to price. I'm not interested in any of those people because I love the accounting profession because I am an accountant. I love this profession. And so that's my reason why, is helping accountants, bookkeepers build more successful firms. So for you, Lucy, you have to answer that question yourself. What is your reason why? And once you've figured that one out, then that's part of your strategy and you want to communicate that. It perhaps should be on your website. What is your reason why? It wants to be on your website. So Lucy, what you might want to do is, similar to Priscilla, that's a great question to ask in my Facebook group and see what other people might say, get other people to share their reason why, and that might give you some inspiration if you're struggling. What does Lisa from Sussex say? Brilliant. I'm just dealing with a prospect who thinks I'm too expensive, so I now have a handling for this. Good stuff, Lisa. Okay. Susan says, what is the title of the top book on your shelf? I have no idea. Let's find out. Yes. This is from my good friend over in Canada, in Toronto, called John Warlow, called The Automatic Customer, which I think is... I did a session for the Value Pricing Academy recently on building a subscription business, and I think this is the best book if you want to build recurring revenue or help your clients to do that, to build up recurring revenue. So there you go, Susan. That was the book on the top of that particular pile. Okay. What other questions have we got? I think we might be running short of questions, and we still have 13 minutes. So let me know what else I can help you with, what questions you've got, and what I might do in the meantime is, and Linda Rolfe says, highly recommend that book. Priscilla says, thank you, very helpful. Okay, thank you for that, because it was such a broad question, it's difficult to know where to start with answering that one. Lisa is working on her next step now, which is creating packages for menu pricing, which is, for those of you that are at the early stages of your value pricing journey, and those of you that are new, I talk about the value pricing journey a lot. In other words, if you right now are on hourly rates, and so Priscilla, this might help you. If you are charging by the hour right now and you want to move to value pricing, and this is why I struggle to answer your question, is because value pricing is it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And I'm still finding in all my surveys that less than 10% of the profession are really properly value pricing. And so if I try to teach you today value pricing, most people would struggle and fail. And I know that because when I started teaching it back in the year 2000, I was teaching accountants in the UK how to value price. Some got it and got great results, amazing results, but most struggled. So I now teach it as a journey. And what I mean by that is take it one step at a time. If you're pricing based on the hour, to shift to value pricing is a big shift. So what I recommend is, if you're pricing on hourly rates, giving an hourly rate, the first thing that you can do is simply to start giving a fixed price up front. Now, giving a fixed price up front is not value pricing. And the reason for that is because the way that most of us in the profession give a fixed price is it's not based on value, it's based on our costs. It's still based on time. It's just that we now give a fixed price based on how long we think the project will take, which is a better way of pricing because at least the customer gets a price right up front. It also means if you give a price up front to the client, if the price is too high, you can change something. You can have a conversation before you start the work. What I found back in the late 1990s when I was on hourly billing, the problem with that is you can't get money up front because you can't give them until you've done the work, you don't know what the price is going to be. So you can't get paid up front, which we should be. But also the number of times at the end of the project, I would send a nice itemized bill of all the time that I'd spent. The number of times I had a fee dispute and sometimes never got paid was probably most times, to be honest. People would have some sort of dispute over the size of the bill. I would do credit notes, I would discount, I would write things off. It was crazy. Whereas if you give a fixed price up front, you can have those negotiations, discussions. You're in the driving seat, you've got control because you've not done the work yet. If you're on hourly and you wait till you've finished and you send them an hourly bill, well, the client's got the leverage. The client's got what they want. They've got their tax return done or their project cleanup. They've got the work done they want. And now it's up to them when they pay you, or even if they pay you. So going to that question, simply moving from hourly to giving a fixed price up front, it's a great first step. And why was I talking about this? I think it's because somebody mentioned menu pricing. Lisa, it was. Because then what I recommend is once you know how to give a fixed price, even though it's not value pricing yet, you can then start giving people choices, of different packages. Think of the bronze, silver, gold. That's what I call the first step towards value pricing. And the reason for that is because each client's different. The client will choose the package, the bronze, silver, gold, based on their own individual perception of the value of those extra things that you build into your premium service. Okay. What else did Lisa say? Lisa says, last year I changed all my existing clients from hourly to fixed pricing. Good for you. And it increased my income by 20%. And I didn't lose any clients. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. And Lisa is in my academy. And I hear that so many times when I teach people how to shift their clients across. Most people, when they follow the process, get to increase their fees, prices, income by 20%. And very often not losing clients. We fear, one of the things, and going back to this confidence issue, one of the reasons that we worry about putting our prices up is this fear that we'll lose all of our clients. And that never happens. At least nobody's told me that yet, and I've been teaching this for over 20 years. When you put your prices up, what I found in my firm and what other people I teach tell me is very often clients say, I wondered when you do that. I always thought you were a bit cheap. Most clients know. And the other thing that's interesting that we have to remember is that we're not selling commodities. We're not selling cups of coffee. We're selling a service that's individual to our clients, but also a service where it's recurring. So whether you're doing their tax returns, which you would do every single year, annual financial statements every single year, bookkeeping every week, every month, what happens is the client builds a relationship with you. And we must not dismiss, undervalue the importance, the value of that relationship. And so that creates a stickiness because when you put your prices up, it's difficult to shift to another accountant, another bookkeeper, because they know you, they like you, they're used to working with you. And so that creates a natural stickiness or lock-in. And that's why when we put our prices up, we don't lose many clients. Okay, I've got some more questions coming, I think. Lucy. Lucy says, what key words can we use in the pricing brochure? Okay. It's not so much keywords, it's more about the structure. So if we just talk briefly about the value conversation, which is the process that we go through. And I talk about the 3 stages of that. We have to uncover the value first, which is asking the right questions. We've mentioned that earlier. Then we build up the value, which is the communication process. And then we capture the value by coming up with a price that reflects the value of what we do. So Lucy, the pricing brochure is part of your systems for communicating value, which is the second of those 3 phases. And when we are building up the value, when we're communicating the value of what we do, then we should always start with what's the pain that we're taking away? What's the problem that we're solving? And that could be multiple pains, multiple problems that we're solving. We want to explain that in a better way, because the better we are at building up in the client's mind the pain, the problems, some of which they may have told us when we're asking questions. Sometimes they're things that the client doesn't even know that could be a problem. For example, if the bookkeeping's a mess and they've come to you because they've just had a communication from the tax authorities, what they might not realize is the extent to which there might be fines, penalties, interest, and so on. And so we want to properly explain all the things that could possibly go wrong to really build up the pain in their mind, because the bigger the pain, the more they want you to take that pain away. So we want to make sure we build that into our brochures, our systems, our communication structure. Once we've talked about pain, the next thing we do is we then talk about the benefits, but we focus particularly on outcomes. So we want to make sure we communicate what's the outcome, what they can expect, what their business will look like after you've done the work. And if you've done that really well, you've really talked about how you're going to take pain away and the outcomes, the results. Very often early in the conversation, clients say things like, that's exactly what I want. How much will it cost? Which is the price question. And we should never answer the price question until we've finished building up the value. So we want to make sure we've got some scripts. And if you've got a brochure, you'd have some words in there to explain the basis on which you price, but why you can't give a price yet. And that would be perhaps because you give them different choices. And so then what you would do is you would go through and talk about the different options available to them. You would talk through, if you're using menu pricing, you might talk about what's in your bronze, but the big things in your premium and what's so special about those. And so that would be, Lucy, in your brochure, you might have some tables that show what's in the different packages, and you would talk them through. And then what you'd also want to do, just in case they take the brochure away, want to read it, you want to have lots of benefit-driven language. So, for example, if you are if you're communicating the value of moving a client from a desktop system to, for example, a cloud accounting system like QBO, you might, as part of that conversion process, you might set up for them a chart of accounts. And that might be one of the things you build into all three of your packages. And that's great that you build more things into your packages, but you have to communicate the benefits. You can't just say to the client, when we move you to QBO, one of the things we'll do is set up a chart of accounts, because whilst that might sound fancy, they have no idea what that means. It's what's called a feature. We have to explain to the client, what is the benefit? Why would we create a chart of accounts? What's the benefit to the client? And so when we're creating our systems, our words, our scripts, our brochures, we want to make sure that everything that we do as part of a service, we want to be able to communicate with the client. What is that thing? What is a chart of accountants? What is a chart of accounts? Why do we do it? What's the problem that takes away, or what's the benefit it gives to the client? And we have to be able to communicate that with everything that we do. Okay, Lucy, I hope that helps. How long we got? We've got 2 minutes left. And Diane says, you mentioned effective pricing software. Can you talk a little more about this software? Yeah, basically it's a piece of software that enables you to have the price conversation in front of the client. I'm going to ask Sarah right now if she could perhaps put a link to the website for that into the chat box. So I would suggest to you, Diane, if you've never come across the effective pricing software before, first thing is go to the website. I've put on the website, there's some videos where I talk through some of the things it does, but it's, depending on which plan you go with, there's some models already built into that. So if you, for example, want to price moving a client to a cloud accounting system, there's models already built in with all the questions you would ask and how you might build your packages. So have a look at the website, Diane. I can see Sarah's put some links into the comments box right now. And then if you've got any more questions, having looked at the website, I suggest that you ask them in my Facebook group. For example, go to Value Price with Mark Wickersham if you're not in it, and ask your questions there, and me or Sarah will clarify any questions you've got. We do run from time to time on a Friday, same time as this, a 60-minute session all about the software where we answer questions and so on. As I said at the outset today, I'm actually officially on holiday this week. So we're not running that on Friday, but very soon you'll start seeing on Fridays we'll run sessions where you can ask questions about the software. I will show you it on the screen, and so on, Diane. Okay, Teresa says, this might be the last question because we are actually on the hour now. What are your thoughts on having your pricing options displayed on your website? Teresa, I strongly recommend you do not. I feel it's a worrying trend in our profession of putting prices on a website. And the reason for that is because we're not selling products or commodities. We're selling a service. Every client is different. And so The main purpose of your website is to demonstrate that you are different, better than everybody else, and to give people a compelling reason to reach out to you, to have a meeting with you. That's what the website's for. When you're talking about price with a new client, you have to have a conversation. You have to have the value conversation. You have to build up the value. If you put on your website, we do tax returns and they're £250, then you'll find that, well, what I tend to see is that though most firms that have price on their website have crazy low prices, because if you had a really high price, you're going to put people off. So most people put low prices, and what happens is they attract the wrong sorts of people. The people who want a cheap tax return, a cheap bookkeeping service. And those of you in the Value Pricing Academy know I talk a lot about price psychology and anchors, and having low prices on your website creates the wrong anchors, an expectation that you are going to be cheap. So we want to make sure that our websites are all about talking about the difference we make, the benefits, a compelling reason to reach out to you. And then you have the pricing conversation in a face-to-face or online meeting. Teresa, if you want some more help with that, there is actually a video on my YouTube channel, a short video, which I did about 3 years ago. I can see you're on Facebook right now. If you can't find that video, I can dig the link out just on my Facebook group. Ask the question and tag me. If you can't find the video, I will dig it out. It's a few years ago now, but I did one called something like why you should not put your prices on your website. So Teresa, thank you so much for that question. That was a good one. We are out of time. We always finish these promptly because it's now just gone 5 o'clock in Portugal. So thank you so much for coming along. Thanks for all the great questions. If you've enjoyed this, please give me the thumbs up. I will play out with some music fairly soon because it gives me a chance to read all the rest of the comments. I do read your comments. And if I haven't answered your questions, then your options are either go to my Facebook group, Value Pricing with Mark Wickersham, ask your questions there, and other people. There's a group of over 8,500 accountants, bookkeepers. Someone will answer your question. I will often chip in and answer the question as well. Or come to the next one of these sessions live. November the 24th is our next session where we'll look at communication systems. And again, 60 minutes, I can answer your questions then. Thank you for coming along. I will see you hopefully very soon online. Bye for now.